Hi, scholars. Today we are going to read a story called Happy Birthday, Martin Luther King by Jean Marzollo. Who is Martin Luther King Jr.? What did he do for our country? While we are reading, I want you to think about what makes Martin Luther King so important to Americans. Before we begin, there are 3 vocabulary words that I want to go over with you. The first one is an abbreviation. That is junior. When a name has junior at the end, that means that person was named after a family member. This word is pastor. A pastor is similar to a priest or a minister. They are a leader of a church. The third word I want to go over is law. A law is a rule from the government that is enforced. Let's start reading Happy Birthday, Martin Luther King. Martin Luther King Jr. was born on January 15, 1929 in Atlanta, Georgia. His parents loved him very much. Martin Luther King had the same name as his father, except for one thing. His father was called Martin Luther King Sr. Martin was called Martin Luther King Jr. Martin went to elementary school, high school, and college in Atlanta. He was a good student. Later, he went to divinity school in Pennsylvania. Martin became a pastor, just like his dad, at the Ebenezer Baptist Church in Atlanta. They were both called Reverend. The Reverend Martin Luther King Sr. and the Reverend Martin Luther King Jr. Who is this text about? And what have we learned about them? This text is about Martin Luther King Jr., and we have learned that he grew up to be a pastor, just like his father. Martin's job as a minister was to help people in need. He visited sick people in the hospital and made them feel better. He asked people not to fight with each other. He said that there were peaceful ways to solve problems. And like his father, Martin led people in prayer and song. What is unique about Martin? What characteristics make him unique? He helped his community by helping those in need and speaking up against people fight with each other to solve problems. The Reverend Martin Luther King Jr. is famous because he helped our country change some of its laws. A law is like a rule. Once there was a law in some places that said only white people could sit in the front of a bus and that black people had to sit in the back. Martin Luther King said this law needed to be changed. Rosa Parks and other people helped him change it. Now, all people can sit in an empty seat they like. Once there were laws in some places that said that African Americans could use only certain restaurants and drinking fountains. Martin Luther King and many other people helped change these laws. Now, all people can share the same restaurants and drinking fountains. Remember, the question that I asked y'all at the beginning of this story is, what makes Martin Luther King so important to Americans? So if I look at this page that we just read, I learned that he helped change laws that said that white people and black people couldn't use the same water fountain. That could be one reason why he's so important. Once there was a law in some places that said that black children and white children couldn't go to school together. Martin Luther King and other people, including many very brave children, had this law changed too. Now black children and white children can go to school together. Why is Martin Luther King Jr. famous? What was the impact he had on his community? What does impact mean? Well, impact means, did he have an influence on people around him? He helped change laws that kept black and white people separate on buses. He helped change laws that assigned different water fountains for different races. He helped change laws that kept white and black children from going to the same school. Seems to me like Martin Luther King Jr. worked really hard to make sure that people had equal opportunities. Martin Luther King had a special talent for leadership. When he spoke, people listened. Poor people, rich people, white people, black people, and people from all around the world listened when Martin Luther King spoke. Many helped him work, march, sing, and pray for justice. In the summer of 1963, Martin Luther King Jr. gave the most famous speech of his life. He gave it outdoors to 250,000 people who had come to Washington, D.C. to ask the president for jobs and freedom for black people. In his speech, Martin Luther King said that he had a dream. His dream was that people everywhere would learn to live together without being mean to one another. What did Martin Luther King Jr. value? From listening to the story so far, I've learned that he values freedom, peace, and equality. His leadership was special, and he shared his dream of everyone living together without being mean to one another. Looking at this picture, I can tell that people agreed with what Martin Luther King Jr. was saying because there are so many people gathered there to listen to his speech. Martin Luther King Jr. was shot and killed in 1968. Because he loved poor people so much, he was given a special funeral in Atlanta, Georgia, where he was born. His body was put in a simple farm cart and pulled slowly by 2 mules to a cemetery. Thousands of people walked behind Martin in a sad, loving parade. On his gravestone were carved these beautiful words, "Free at last, free at last. Thank God Almighty, I'm free at last." What happened to Martin Luther King Jr.? If you said that he was killed, you are correct. Why do you think the author included this part in the story? Martin Luther King Jr. was killed so tragically, and he died so young, and he had a lot of work that was left undone. Imagine how many more great things Martin Luther King Jr. could have done if he had been alive. I think the author included this section in the story to let us know how important he was to our history. Martin Luther King wanted people to be able to go places together, share food together, and love one another in peace. Because he worked so hard for freedom and helped so many people gain it, we honor him every year on his special day. We call this day Martin Luther King Day, and we say to him, "Happy birthday, Martin Luther King." Wow, that was a really great story. I was looking at my calendar the other day, and I noticed that we do not have school on Monday. We don't have school on Monday because it is Martin Luther King Jr.'s birthday. So we will be celebrating Martin Luther King Jr.'s birthday on Monday.